Hey everybody, Ray here, and today I'm going to showcase a detailed build guide for my Shield Crush armor stacking champion. While showcasing the build basic capabilities, I will tell you a little more about it, and if you want to see some uber capabilities instead, please click on the corresponding timestamp. So, I started the league with this build and farmed all my gear with it as well. It was really enjoyable so far, and can be good both on middle budget and in the higher min-maxed version that I'm currently running. For now, I think that Champion is the best Ascendancy for Shield Crush armor stack, since it can have much more DPS, additional convenience, and 20% Calling Strike, which is absolutely amazing. It can also work much better with auras, which are bread and butter of any armor stacker, and it's pretty important. With this build, you can clear all the content in the game pretty comfortably, and can be really tanky thanks to 90% resistances, decent health, and tremendous amount of armor. The DPS can be pretty decent as well, especially with the high-end version, and if you decide so, you can always trade some of the health for even more DPS increase to melt everything in seconds. Want to try it out? Then let's look into the items which you will need to start the build. So, to start the build out, you will need 3 items. The most important one is the shield itself, since we are shield crushing build. The shield is Emperor Vigilance, since it has really high innate armor and energy shield. Both of those are important to stack our shield crushing damage. The second item is Replica Drum Feather. It will give us increased attack damage per 450 armor. And this is really important, since that way we will get damage from stacking armor itself. This is the main part of the build, so make sure you will get those two as fast as possible. With them you can already start and get the third item, which is pretty important as well. It's Searing Fury, the Viridian Jewel that will give you critical strike chance and critical strike multiplier based on maximum energy shield of your shield. Since Emperor Vigilance that we are using have really high innate energy shield amount, it will work really good with Searing Fury, and that way you will be able to get a lot of critical strike chance and critical strike multiplier together to boost your DPS. So perfectly, you need to have all 3 items to start it out, but I would say if you have Emperor Vigilance and Replica Drum Feather, you can already start and get Searing Fury a little later. Speaking about the Ascendancy, you need to start with Unstoppable Hero, and then move to the Fortitude. That way you will always have fortification, you will take less damage, and you will have bonuses from Unstoppable Hero all the time. The third Ascendancy should be Inspirational, since it will increase the effect of non-curse auras from your skills, and it's a really good bonus. It will also give you a banner skill with no reservation, which is pretty good since we always struggle with mana. And the last one should be Master of Metal, since we can work pretty alright with Impales itself, but it's not really that beneficial. So, talking about our path of building, I have created a different trees so you can use them in different situations. You can change them right here from League Starter, Middle Budget, High Budget, and Endgame. And you can also change your items like League Starter, Middle Budget, High Budget, and Endgame. And you can also change your skills like League Starter, Middle Budget, High Budget, and Endgame again. That way you can use a corresponding tree and take the one that you pretty much need at the moment. So you should start with the League Starter build. It utilizes a lot of different small concepts here and there, and it was based for level 80 when you finish the acts and you get the uniques that you need to start playing. As we already decided, it's Replica's Drum Feather, Emperor's Vigilance, and the Searing Fury. I'm also taking a lot of small shenanigans here and there. For example, you can get like life and mana leech here. You can get like graceful assault for onslaught here to run faster and stuff like this. You also need to go to the iron reflexes as fast as possible, since you will need to use grace and you will need to get armor out of grace, which is pretty important. So this is the basic version, like a league starter. It's pretty low on levels, the items are not that good, and you have only one Viridian Jewel. So you should use this as a basis. And after you are ready to proceed, you can move forward to the next one. So the next version is middle budget. It will have much more shenanigans. It's already have like Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flash that I will showcase a little later. It has clustered jewels and stuff like this. I'm also upgrading the rare items for every version, so those should be different in both middle budget, league starter, high budget and endgame. If you're interested what kind of rares you will need to get, you can just check them in the corresponding item set. You can also use like different skill set that way as well, and use a corresponding one most of the time. So make sure you are checking them all before you are proceeding to the endgame budget that I will showcase a little later as well. It should be pretty important. You can use the endgame both in item set, skill set, and reset as a really good example of what you will need to get for the endgame. As you can see, the DPS here is pretty much high and it's working like really good. The only thing, it's using the Berserk, since I have most of the time the rage on my gloves, so I'm using the Berserk all the time. If you don't have rage or don't have space for the Berserk and stuff like this, make sure to toggle it off, since it can tamper with this. As you can see, the DPS even without the Berserk is like really high, and it will be pretty much enough. But I still really like convenience that it can provide. That was the path of building overview. Make sure you click through all of them, and there's also notes that you can see right here. If you will need some kind of tips, like frequently asked questions and stuff like this, you can always go there to the notes and check them all. It could be helpful for most of you, but anyway, I will do a full item overview a little later together with like jewels, upgrades that you might need to get and stuff like this. Let's go and look into it. Talking about the items, it's pretty simple. We are using Emperor Vigilance as stated in the build, together with a Replica Dram Feather, which we need to enchant with Harvest to get increased accuracy per 2% of quality. Since we are not hitting with the sword, we are hitting with the shield, we don't need damage of the sword itself, we need additional accuracy instead. And I'm using Ashes of the Stars. You should aim for high quality of all skill gems, and increase the reservation is not that important. It's alright if you can get higher one, but if you can, just get lower one and drop one aura like Blood and Sun, for example. At the helmet, you need increased effect of non-curse auras from your skills, together with increased mana reservation efficiency of skill, and one level of socketed AoE gems. This is pretty simple, so try to aim for this one, but if you can, just drop increased effect of non-curse auras, get the mana reservation efficiency, and life, resistances, and level of socketed AoE gems. The gloves are pretty simple, you just need attack speed at them, like maximum life and some resistances. That's pretty much it. The only really important thing about the gloves, you need rage on hit with attacks, since it will give you the chance to use the Berserk, which will increase your damage pretty significantly. So the second part is simple as well, you will get just increased effect of your marks. The boots should just have life and resistances itself, together with some movement speed, and I really enjoy 100% chance to avoid being chilled. You could also roll 1% of maximum fire resistances here, and it's really good since together with Melding of the Flesh, it's like 1% of maximum resistances overall. The build is pretty simple, you can use like any random Stygian Vice together with some life, fire resistance, and any other resistance as well. If you need stats, you can get stats here as well. And the Hypnotic Eye Jewel, it's usually life and some resistances too, to compensate for Melding of the Flesh. At the rings you're getting resistances, please prioritize fire, and non-channeling skills have minus mana cost. This one is pretty important since we need it on both the rings, because our mana cost is really high and we don't have enough mana to attack. You can also get like intelligence if you need it, since the build pretty much lacks intelligence. The second ring should have curse enemies with vulnerability hit if you are using Impossible Escape to get the second curse. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same, so resistances, life and non-channeling skills minus mana cost. And the last, it's the armor. The most important part here is armor increased by overcapped fire resistance. That's pretty much why we are stacking fire resistance pretty much everywhere where we can. You can also roll as implicit like Grace increased aura of effect and increased effect of non-cursed auras overall. But the most important part is armor increased by overcapped fire resistance. Try to get this kind of body armor as fast as possible. If it will have like some additional resistances such as fire or life, it will be even better. Talking about gems, the situation is pretty simple. You just need to put your auras in your helmet. It's like Purity of Fire, Determination, Grace and Enlightenment. This one is pretty important since your main auras are here and you will need to lower their mana cost and mana reservation. So you can also put your auras in your boots as like Pride, Blood and Sand, Haste and another Enlightenment. It could be pretty expensive, so if you don't have a second one, you can draw Blood and Sand and Enlighten together, so just have Pride and Haste here. You should always use Assassin Mark, Divergent Mark on hit support and Life Tap together, since we don't have enough mana to cast Assassin's Mark on hit. That's why we need Life Tap, so we can use it. So don't forget about it. In the gloves you should use like Dread Banner together with Phantasmal Lip Slam for faster movement and Precision together with Arrogance. Precision and Arrogance together is a really good option since we need Precision mostly for additional accuracy, Arrogance will increase aura effect and it will reserve life instead. The reservation of Precision is not that high, so it's just easier to use it that way. And our accuracy will be even higher. And as a weapon I'm using like Molten Shell on the left click, Ancestral Protector for the attack speed and Berserk, that I'm using most of the time when I have Rage. So that's pretty much it. For the Shield Crush I'm using Brutality support, Multi-Strike, make sure you can get Awakened 1 if you can, I will probably upgrade to it soon as well. Awakened melee physical damage support, Divergent Shield Crush, since Divergent bonus is like really good. Make sure to get this one as fast as possible. Impale support and Concentrated Effect support. Concentrated Effect support could be a little tricky since it will lower your AoE zone. So it could be harder to clear maps with this. For bosses, it's like a really good option, but when you clear you can drop it and get Area of Effect instead or Pulverize. Both will work just perfectly, but for me even Concentrated Effect is pretty much alright. So let's see what kind of jewels we will need to use. First and the most important one is Seasoned Fury. I pretty much already told you about it, this is like really important, it will give you a lot of DPS, about like 40 to 50%, so make sure you always have it. The second one is Impossible Escape. This one could be really expensive but a huge bonus. So if you can get it, make sure you will get it. It gives us a chance to jump right here, as you can see, and get Whispers of Doom together with Aura Effect, influence, and reservation efficiency. So that way we can fit in more auras and additional cures. So it could be a decent upgrade. I'm also using Melding of the Flesh, it's pretty much obvious. Make sure it's only 4% to all maximum elemental resistances, and it will work out for you as well. The Watcher's Eye is pretty simple currently. It needs to have Impales you inflict last 2 additional hits while using Pride. This is the most important part. And the second good bonus would be your hits intimidate enemies for 4 seconds while you are using Pride as well. The third one is not that important, but if you have a really huge budget, you can go and look for something like determination bonuses and stuff like this. Moving to the cluster jewels, the first one is pretty simple. It has Fuel of the Fight, Martial Proofs, and Veteran Defender. So we need to allocate Fuel of the Fight to leech mana, and Veteran Defender to get like some attributes here and there, elemental resistances, and a little more defenses from equipped shield. Here I'm using Forbidden Flash and Forbidden Flame to get the Headsman, which will give us 20% Culling Strike. It's completely amazing. It feels so freaking good to cull the enemies, especially like Uber bosses. So it's not really expensive, try to get it as fast as possible. It's one of the strongest options for the champion right now. Moving here, the second cluster jewel should contain Feed the Fury, Fuel the Fight, and Martial Proofs. It's pretty simple, you just need Feed the Fury to leech life and the Martial Proofs. That way we are not getting the Fuel the Fight here, since we don't really need it and we already have it here. You need to buy this one first, and while you don't have the second one right here, you can just get Fuel of the Fight here to leech mana. It's pretty important, so this should be your first cluster jewel to buy. You can check my notes in Path of Building when I pretty much explain it as well. I'm using 2 small cluster jewels, which are pretty simple. It's Increased Effect and Introspection. Those could be a little expensive, but I don't think 35 Increased Effect is necessary. You can do just fine with 25, as you can see I'm doing, and that's pretty much it. Just make sure they have 3 passive skills to get Reservation Efficiency 2 times and Introspection, which is a really strong bonus. So as you can see, we don't have enough, I would say, place to have more different jewels right here, and that's pretty much it. Let's go forward and see our tattoos. For tattoos, it's pretty simple. We will need to stack some Increased Effect of Non-Curse auras from your skills. Make sure you will stack them enough so you will get enough resistances. That way you will get like 90% without additional bonuses. After this you can just use 8% increased armor literally everywhere. As you can see, I have it here, 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 and almost everywhere. You can check Path of Building in terms of how many of them you should kinda click, but I would say as many as possible. It's like a really good idea. So that's pretty much it in terms of tattoos. I'm using only one notable tattoo, and this one is to gain onslaught for 4 seconds on hit. I think it's really good and could be convenient. So if you can, make sure to get this one too, it's not that expensive. If you will encounter troubles with a stun, you can also get Unwavering Stance, and it could be helpful to some players, but I don't feel like it's that important, and I don't have it myself. Speaking about the Pantheon, we have like so many options. I myself always use the Soul of the Brian King, since that way we can avoid stuns and we have a reduced effect of chill, especially if you don't have like buffed boots, and you have 100% chance to avoid being frozen. I really like it. But there's a few additional options. For a single target, you can always use Soul of Solaris, so you will mitigate at least some of the elemental damage, and you can also mitigate the critical strikes that way as well. And for the mapping, you can use Soul of Lunaris. That way you will have additional movement speed and a few additional bonuses as well. With the Minor God, most of the time I just use Soul of Rislata. I really like it because it will help us recover much more life from Flask when we are on low life, which is pretty cool, and enemies that we are hitting will have reduced life regeneration rate. It could be especially helpful if you just starting, since regeneration at enemies could be like really annoying. But there's some few options you can get, like Soul of Shakari to avoid poisons and reduce chaos damage taken, and you can get Soul of Garruk Khan to reduce effect of shock on you if you really care about it. All of those are kinda decent options, so I think it should be chosen mostly based on your personal playstyle. So when comparing Champion and Juggernaut, I'm using the same build. All the items exactly the same. The only change that I changed my Ascendancy from Champion to Juggernaut, and I also allocated Aspect of the Carnage, since it's a really good option for Juggernaut as well. So I'm comparing the Juggernaut with Aspect of the Carnage right here against the Champion with the Headsman. You can kinda compare the stats yourself, but the main parts are pretty simple. As you can see, there's troubles with the resistances at Juggernaut since your auras are not that strong. That way you will need some more shenanigans to reach 90% of resistances. There's also less armor, since most of the armor that we are receiving are coming from the auras. That way the aura bonus at Champion is definitely higher. The damage also much lower, it's about like 40% lower. And we also encounter some mana issues. The only plus that Juggernaut currently have is much better elemental max hit, since it has unique bonus as Unbreakable, which will give you percent of armor applies to fire, cold and lightning damage taken from hits. It can give you about 43, as you can see, percentages of elemental max hit. That's cool, and it's definitely a really strong bonus. But unfortunately, it's not enough to pick an Ascendancy. I would say the survivability of the build is pretty good for both Champion and Juggernaut. And the damage difference is definitely on the side of the Champion as well. That way, when you are picking Juggernaut, the only bonus that you will have is better survivability in terms of elemental damage. Everything else will definitely be weaker. You also will get a little life regeneration here and there, but that's pretty much it. You also will lose fortification and all the additional bonuses. It's harder to stack and pale and stuff like this. So when comparing two stats against each other, I can definitely say that the Champion, in my opinion, is better and will be stronger all-rounder overall. So, talking about the mapping, it could be a pretty interesting situation. Most of the time, it could be a little harder for this build to map compared to faster builds with more AoE. But if you will pick the map, for example, like Crimson Temple, when there is not a lot of space and enemies are standing together, you can kill them without any trouble, just hitting them with a big wave, and that's pretty much it. So always make sure to pick the maps when there's not a lot of open space. Like tight maps would be much better. And in terms of mapping, you can always add pulverize or increase area of effect instead of the concentrated. That way it will be easier for you to hit more enemies and the mapping itself will be faster. You can also use some different ways to move. So you can just jump or you can run, especially if you have a really good Quicksilver flask. So there's a lot of different options. Most of the time I myself kinda jump around, since for me it's easier. So as you can see, in such map as Crimson Temple there's not a lot of trouble, and you can finish map, I would say, in about 2 minutes, or even a little faster, since most of the time here I'm not really trying. It's also an example without Mageblood, since with Mageblood you can definitely be faster. And you can go faster, you can hit harder, and that's pretty much it. But currently, as you can see, even without a Mageblood, you can still finish a map in about 2 minutes, which is pretty good example. So that was Shield Crush Armor Stacker build. I'm sure that if you will try it, you will enjoy it. There's some little details like clear could be a little faster, or you could be even more tankier, but overall the build is pretty strong and definitely capable of clearing all the content in the game. Like and subscribe for more Path of Exile content, and see you next time!